Hey guys, what's going on? So today I have a different kind of video, and it's kind of a how-to get into a certain genre, and that genre is brutal death metal. Now there's a particular reason why I'm making this video. I'll get to that in a second. In the background we're playing Devourance Butcher of the Week. I actually just got this record in the mail yesterday. I'll show this off in my next collection update. I'll have more stuff to show when I get it, but I'll talk about it more later. And actually this album's a part of the video, so actually I'll probably keep it down here. So basically the reason I'm making this video, because it's not... Brutal death metal is a genre, not like other genres of metal where it's like, oh, you want to get into death metal, okay, just listen to fucking, I don't know, Death or Morbid Angel. Or you want to get into thrash metal, just listen to Slayer or Metallica. It's different because it's very hard to get into, and a lot of people hate brutal death metal when we even talk shit about it, just because they give the wrong album a chance the first time they listen to it. Because like, they'll be like, huh, I should check out brutal death metal, and they'll go straight for fucking, like, I don't know, like, they'll go straight for fucking Disentomb or fucking Cranium or, like, a really crazy band that's, like, a little more on the extreme side. Brutal death metal is more popular. And I feel like you kind of have to work your way up to those bands. It's like black metal in that sense, where it's an acquired taste. And you have to start out with, like, you know, when you're getting into black metal, you start with, like, Bathory and, like, Darkthrone, and then you kind of work your way up to, like, Burzum and Mayhem, and then you work past that to, like, Rosh, more extreme shit. It's kind of like that, but it's probably even more of an acquired taste than black metal. So anyways, let's get started. So first of all, you should already be into regular death metal to begin with, but I'm not even going to talk about that, because that's just a given. That's pretty easy to get into if you're a metalhead. But there's some albums that are part of, not just old school death metal, but just part of like earlier death metal, that are kind of just important background albums. If you want to get into brutal death metal, you should probably already like these albums. So the first one is probably what I consider the first brutal death metal album, and that's Suffocation's Effigy of the Forgotten. If you're looking to get into brutal death metal and you haven't listened to this album, you need to listen to this first. But all these albums I'm about to name are kind of albums that you need to already know and like if you want to get into brutal death metal, because they're just a good foundation. So this album, Effigy of the Forgotten by Suffocation, either this or fucking Fierce from Within are both really good, but this one's more brutal, I'd say. And it sounds a lot like bands that would come later on. They pretty much invented the slam riff on here, which a million brutal death metal bands fucking use. And then that gets to slam death metal, which we'll talk about later, but this is a very important album. And of course, early Cannibal Corpse shit, especially Butcher at Birth and Tomb of the Mutilated. Really popular albums. If you're into death metal, I'm pretty sure you like those. I don't own those, so I'm not going to be showing them, obviously. But again, important stuff in the world of brutal death metal. It's the only stuff that they ever did that was really brutal death metal. Another one, this is a little biased to me, but this is definitely an album that you should know if you want to get into brutal death metal. Unknown Survivor, Grit Topsy, my favorite death metal album of all time. But seriously, if you're looking to get into brutal death metal, this is a very important album that you should already know. If you're into death metal in general, it's just a masterpiece to begin with. And a lot of bands copy this or play a very similar style of death metal to this, or play this but slightly more extreme, basically. So yeah. And then, of course, another band I don't own any stuff from, I would like to get some stuff from, though, is Broken Hope. Another really early brutal death metal band, really easy to get into if you already like old school death metal. Similar to Suffocation and Cannibal Corpse, like I showed, not as fast, though. But they have that nasty kind of sound, like the really low vocals and, like, gory artwork. Last band that you should probably know is Mortician. If you like Mortician, you'll probably like some of the other earlier bands I'm about to talk about. But yeah, so... Hacked Up for Barbecue or Chainsaw Dismemberment are really great, or pretty much anything from Mortician. Also, if I can turn over the record in a second. So anyways, so those are like all the early stuff that no one was really calling it real death metal yet, but like some bands started to come out after that started doing heavier stuff, or at least they were playing similarly to that style, but they kind of took everything from that style and made it, I don't want to say they made it more brutal, but they made it more like, they kind of saturated the brutality of it a bit more, I guess. They made it... It was like, man, you listen to, like, Suffocation, and I think that they weren't trying to make the heaviest record ever, I don't think, because there's a lot of other aspects of this album besides heaviness. And a lot of bands took that, and they're like, okay, let's play Suffocation, but we'll try to sound heavier than Suffocation. It's kind of that cliche of trying to out-extreme all the other bands. The first band I would listen to, if you already know all the bands I just talked about that are part of regular death metal and kind of brutal death metal, if you like all those bands, the first band I'm about to talk about, you'll definitely like. And that's Deeds of Flesh. They're one of the biggest bands in regular brutal death metal. But they don't sound, I don't know, they're easy to get into if you already like regular death metal, because they basically sound like, you know, Cryptopsy and Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation. They're a lot more technical, and their production is a lot more raw, which makes it sound a lot heavier, probably. Or not necessarily heavier, but more nasty. I'd say this is their best album, and it's probably their best to start with. Trading Pieces. This and their second album, Inbreeding the Anthrophagy, or Phagy, I don't know how you pronounce it, are really great albums to start with for Deeds of Flesh. They play really meat and potatoes, really almost generic style of brutal death metal, but it's not as insane as some other bands out there. But interesting song structure, very technical, like I already said, I think, and it's really fun. It's very like meat and potatoes, though, like I said. But yeah, so that's one of the first albums that came out when brutal death metal started becoming more of a thing, after early bands kind of started to pioneer stuff that would become brutal death metal. Another band from like an earlier era that's easier to get into is Internal Bleeding. They were basically copying Suffocation and used more slams, which eventually would all into slamming brutal death metal, which again we'll talk about later. But Internal Bleeding, if you like Suffocation, you should have absolutely no problem getting into Internal Bleeding. So if you like all the bands I already named, which if you like I said, if you like Suffocation and Cannibal Corpse and Cryptopsy and Mortician and Broken Hope, you should have no problem getting into bands like Deeds of Flesh or Internal Bleeding. So once you like those bands, I think the next step you should go is you want to listen to bands that are just slightly heavier, not necessarily heavier, but slightly more nasty sounding. So early Skinless, the first album, Progressions Towards Evil, is a really great album to listen to. It's a little bit of an acquired taste as far as the vocals, because this is where the vocals start getting really low and nasty. Not like, I don't know, Skinless vocals aren't quite like the toilet flushy super low vocals, but they're almost there. And they'll also introduce you to, like, you already have bands doing gory stuff, like, you know, Deeds of Flesh and all that, but like eventually, like, bands started to take the gore thing even further and making it like comical and more perverted and nasty. And Skinless was one of the first bands to do that. So yeah, their debut album is their best album in my opinion, and it's their best album to start with. Progression Towards Evil, or any of their albums are good, but I'd stick with their first two, maybe first three albums, but especially Progression Towards Evil. Another important band is Dehumanized that you should check out early on. They don't have the lowest vocals ever, but they were one of the first bands to start using more slams, really groovy, catchy shit. If you like really catchy, groovy metal, you'll like brutal death metal pretty much, because it's usually either a lot of blast beats or a lot of like groovy shit. And they tend to mix the two, which it's not like tech death necessarily, where tech death is just dissonance and blast beats for the most part. While brutal death metal likes to take the dissonance and blast beats, and they use that, but they even it out with catchier, groovier parts, which is why I really love brutal death metal. But yeah, so Dehumanized is a really easy band to get into for brutal death metal. Early Aborted, especially their album Gormageddon. It has a lot of breakdowns and stuff, so if you don't like breakdowns, you probably won't like it, and it influenced a lot of deathcore. So if you don't like deathcore, you probably won't like Aborted. It's not really essential listening, but it's important to listen to if you want to get into brutal death metal. And another band that you can't not talk about when it comes to brutal death metal, Dying Fetus. Once you're on the level of trying to get into slightly nastier bands, early Dying Fetus is brutal death metal, like I'd say the first three albums, but Destroy the Opposition started adding more tech death. I'd say their first two and the Grotesque Impalement EP are pure brutal death metal. I'd say the best Dying Fetus release from those to start with is probably Grotesque Impalement, but if you start with Killing on Adrenaline or Purification Through Violence, you should be fine. But again, a little more technical, but really fucking groovy and just really catchy and really fucking heavy. The vocals got a lot lower on here. John Gallagher, not in Dying Fetus is correct. I mean, in the evolution of brutal death metal, Dying Fetus is an important band for that, because they started doing really low vocals. Again, like Skinless. So yeah. So the next step of brutal death metal before you try out slam is I'd say bands like Disgorge, Decrepit Birth, the early Decrepit Birth before they became tech death, and Defeated Sanity. Especially Disgorge. If you like Deeds of Flesh, you'll definitely like Disgorge, because Deeds of Flesh started adding more like super low vocals, really raw, twisted, nasty production. Like if you like more sound production, you'll probably love early brutal death metal because it takes mortar sound production and it basically makes it even more mortar sound in a way almost. The guitars have almost no mids at all. The drums sound like shit, but in a good way. I don't know how to explain it. It's just kind of something that grows on you over time. Because a lot of people don't like brutal death metal because of the drum sound, but it's just something that grows on you. It's just one of the kind of niche things about it as a genre. But yeah, Disgorge, it's like Deeds of Flesh, but it's a little bit faster, a little more chaotic, much gorier artwork and stuff, and nastier. Really interesting and kind of cool lyrics too. But I'd say their best albums to start with, I'd say their best album, and their best album to start with is Chile Gutted, and their album Cranial Impalement is also really good as well. But yeah, so Disgorge, Decrepit Birth, their first album, and Time Begins is just very blasturbation like, but it's not necessarily, I don't know, it's very technical, but it's easy to get into if you like blast beats and shit. But I can understand why somebody wouldn't like it because it's basically blasturbation. But I really like the song structures and stuff. They're really technical, and the more you listen to it, then the more you kind of figure out the song structure. There's something I really like about this genre of death metal. And Defeated Sanity, their album Psalms of the Moribund is another really great fucking album that you should listen to once you're decently into brutal death metal. Again, kind of like Disgorge, but it's a lot more technical because they're considered technical brutal death metal, but it's not necessarily like they use a lot of sweeps and tapping and stuff, like say a band like Dying Fetus. It's more like the riffs are just really fucking crazy and all over the place. There's a lot of jazz influence as well. Like imagine like a brutal death metal version of Atheist. Well, kinda, not quite. But yeah, Defeated Sanity. If you like Disgorge, who I just named, you'll like them. So once you're past all of that stuff, then basically around like the early 2000s, slam death metal started to come out. Now this is a genre that people absolutely hate because I think you should already be into brutal death metal if you're trying to get into slam, because you gotta get used to like the nasty lyrics, the nasty vocals, etc., the cliches of the genre, in order to understand the, I don't know, the appeal of slam death metal. Now I'm not the biggest slam death metal man. I prefer brutal death metal. But there's some slam death metal that's fucking amazing, like who we're listening to right now, Devourment, who we'll talk about right now. So honestly, I think that the best album to start with for Devourment isn't Molesting the Decapitated. That's their best album, but it's not the best to start with because it's kind of hard to get into because of how crazy and extreme it is. I'd say Butcher the Weak is their best album to start with because it has cleaner production. The re-recording of it, of course, has cleaner production. Vocals aren't quite as nasty, but I'd say they're about on par with the nastiest of vocals from like Defeated Sanity, who I named earlier, and maybe Skinless, maybe a little lower than Skinless, I don't know. But you know, the lyrics get a lot more brutal and nasty, a lot groovier, of course. Another slam album you should check out if you're trying to get into that once you're already into brutal death metal is Anomalies of Artificial Origin by Abominable Putridity. It's a really good album. Again, super clean production, so if you're not into clean production, then you probably won't like that, so I won't listen to it. But if you don't mind clean production, then you'll enjoy it, because it's really catchy, and there's a little bit of technical stuff here and there. So once you're into all of those two albums, then what in my opinion is the best, like, the gold standard for slam death metal is Molesting the Decapitated or 138 by Devourment. Yeah, this is just a masterpiece, and once you like this, you can listen to pretty much any slam death metal band, and depending on who it is, you'll enjoy it. I don't like all slam death metal bands, but there's some other ones that I enjoy, but I don't think any of them are quite as good as Devourment because they don't quite have the same level of, like, catchiness or memorability. That's not even a word. They aren't quite as memorable as Devourment. Devourment knows how to write good songs, but have them be catchy and brutal as fuck, which is why I really like Devourment a lot. But yeah, this album is just like the peak of like brutal death metal and slam, in my opinion. But yeah, again, this is an acquired taste of a genre. You might want to give these albums multiple listens, but start where I started. I'll link most of these albums in the description when I upload this later. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel like people should give brutal death metal more of a chance and listen to it a little more. Start with the earlier stuff and work your way up, like with black metal, because it's a really acquired taste. Because, I mean, at first, the first time I heard Devourment, I thought it fucking sucked. I heard Baby Killer, and I was like, fuck, the vocals sound like shit, and the production's awful. And then I got into Cryptopsy and Suffocation, and then just I got a natural progression. Like, I got into Deeds of Flesh and Disgorge, and then eventually I got into Devourment. And yeah. And I don't know, I've been exploring the genre a lot more lately. I don't like it quite as much as old school death metal, but it's definitely my second favorite style of death metal. But yeah, so check out those albums though if you're looking to get into brutal death metal. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. So that's it for this video though. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. See you later.